Chapter 1. A New Doctor. A year ago, a little boy named Samy Kind almost always showed kindness to his friends and family. But then, with his mom and dad announcing that they were moving to a different home for some unknown reason, Samy wasn't quite sure how he could still be kind to other people with whom he hadn't met or known before. During the time he was getting used to a new home, he lost his dad and ended up in a big fight with a kid at school. He didn't feel like wanting to be kind to anybody because he felt like he was the only one who lost a parent, probably because he never understood that other people might have lost someone they loved too. That was until he heard some good advice from his grandparents when he went to visit them. He got back to his kind self, even when life was hard. Samy was one day getting ready for his first day of second grade. So were a lot of his friends: Flicker, Parker, Stephanie, Lenny, Rosella, and Ashley. Spike hadn't been hanging out with Samy and the rest of them, just because of what happened after he and Samy had a fight in the snow. It had to do with losing a loved one, and someone was being rude about it. Samy was in his bedroom, making sure his backpack was set up with his pencils, blank notebook, and other school supplies. "Samy!" called his mother, Senny, from below. "It's time to go." Samy ran out of his room, down the stairs, and found Senny putting his little sister Lucy's shoes on. "Where are we going, Mom?" asked Samy. "You have an appointment with your new doctor today," said Senny. "It's been over a year since your last checkup." "What?" asked Samy, with surprised eyes. "It's been over a year since your last checkup," Samy said again. No, said Samy, shaking his head. "What do you mean I have a new doctor? What happened to Dr. Goodwin?" "She's not your doctor anymore," said Samy, "because we moved. Remember? She lives in New York. We live in Utah, and I found another good doctor." "Who is she?" asked Samy. "It's not a she," said Samy. "It's a he this time." "Oh," said Samy, with an embarrassed look. "Okay, who is he then?" "His name is Dr. Divine," said Samy. Samy gave a bizarre face after hearing the name. "Dr. Divine?" he snickered. "I know that sounds kind of weird," said Senny, "but he's a really nice doctor, and he loves kids. I think you'll like him. He has such a good sense of humor with kids." "Good sense of humor?" asked Samy. "What does that mean?" "It means he's funny," said Senny, as she picked up Lucy. "Oh, like his name being Dr. Divine?" Samy couldn't help it. He burst out laughing. It even made Lucy coo with giggles. Senny looked confused. "I guess you could say that. Now come on, let's go." While following his mom and sister out through the front door, Samy still kept on laughing until his throat ached. Samy climbed into the back seat, while Senny clicked Lucy in with him. After doing so, she walked around and climbed into the driver's seat. She started the car, rolled down the driveway, and drove out of the neighborhood. In a few minutes, they made it to a building where it looked like an old schoolhouse from the mid-20th century. After parking the car, Samy came out and took Lucy out of her car seat. Samy walked right next to his mother. There was a sign at the front of the building. It said Country Park Medicare. It had a list of names in the business. Samy looked at the sign carefully. "Okay," she said, nodding her head. "We're at the right place." "How do you know?" asked Samy. "It says the name of your new doctor on the sign." "Oh," said Samy. He followed her towards the automatic doors of the building. The lobby was filled with different front desks to check in. Samy and Samy walked towards the counter that said Family Medicine. Samy talked with the receptionist and got Samy checked in for the appointment. They went towards the chairs in the middle of the lobby. Samy sat down with Lucy in her arms. Samy saw a toy chest at the back of a wall by some other chairs, so he crouched down and played with the toy cars and action figures. A few minutes later, the nurse called Samy's name. He and Samy, with Lucy in her arms, followed the nurse back. Samy did exactly what the nurse asked him to do, like stepping on the scale and having his blood pressure and temperature checked. Afterwards, the nurse led them to a vacant room. She told them that Dr. Devine would come in a few minutes. "So, Mom," said Samy, while waiting, "what do you know about this doctor? Is he like Dr. Goodwin?" "I'm sure he is," said Samy with a tight smile. "Does he help people like us?" asked Samy. "Yes," said Samy. "He's a doctor. He ought to help people. Why else would he be a doctor?" Samy shrugged his shoulders. "Maybe he'd be a doctor just for fun," he guessed. Sammy's heart jumped when he heard a knock on the door. "Maybe I would be," said a deep, pleasant voice. "I do like being a doctor." Samy turned around and saw a big, tall man with a black goatee. He had on a white lab coat with a blue button-up shirt and a bright red tie. There lay a green stethoscope on his shoulders. He was holding a clipboard with a couple of sheets of paper. He had a smile on his face. "Hello," he said happily. "Are you Samy Kind?" "Yeah, I am," said Samy nervously. The doctor set the clipboard on the counter. "I'm Dr. Devine," he said. He sat down on a little rolling stool and rolled towards the computer. "I'm your new primary care doctor. I will examine you today. But before we do that, I have a few follow-up questions to ask you." He typed up a few things on the computer and asked Samy and Samy the questions. Samy did most of the answering, just because there were questions Samy didn't quite understand. After they were done answering the questions, Dr. Devine stood up from the stool and went to the sink. "All right, Samy," he said. "Please hop up onto that table, and we'll get started." While the doctor washed his hands, Samy stood up from the chair by his mother and walked to the examination table. He stepped on the little stepladder and carefully sat on the paper facing the doctor. "Now," said Dr. Devine, picking up an otoscope from the counter, "I'm going to use this to look in your ears and mouth." He turned the little light of the otoscope on and checked both Samy's ears. Samy felt a little tickle, and it made him giggle a bit. After looking in both ears, the doctor pulled out a tongue depressor. "Your ears are good, so you can't ignore your mother when she calls you," reminded Dr. Devine. "Now stick your tongue out and say, 'ah.'" Samy opened his mouth wide enough. He did as Dr. Devine said, and while holding his tongue out, he let out a long ah. He could taste the wood from the tongue depressor. "Yep," said Dr. Devine, nodding his head. "Your throat is smooth. Your vocals even sound nice. You should be a singer." He gave a very corny smile. Samy chuckled. "Thanks, I guess," said Samy, shrugging. Dr. Devine then took the stethoscope off his shoulders and put the earpieces on. He breathed out warm air from his mouth onto the chest piece. "Now I'm going to take a listen to your lungs," he said. He went behind Samy. He lifted the back of Sammy's shirt and put the round piece on Sammy's back. "Oh, man," said Samy, feeling a little chill. "That's a bit cold." "Take nice deep breaths," Dr. Devine said. Samy inhaled slowly and held his breath and exhaled out the same way. "Good," said the doctor. He did a few more times on Sammy's back. Samy did it all the same way until the doctor took the piece off Sammy's back and came to the front. "Your lungs sound very strong. Now I'm going to take a listen to your heart beat. Can you pull your shirt up, please?" "Okay, doctor," said Samy, happily lifting the hem up to his neck. "Listen up." The doctor chuckled and placed the piece on Sammy's chest. He listened carefully. He raised his brow. He said, with his lips vibrating. "What?" asked Samy, lowering his smile. "Is there a problem, doctor?" Dr. Devine kept moving the piece in different spots. Samy couldn't help but wonder what the doctor was hearing. He said again. "Doctor?" asked Samy, feeling worried. "Patience, Samy," reminded Samy. After a few seconds, Dr. Devine removed the piece from Sammy's chest. "Whoa," said Dr. Devine, taking the earpieces off. "Your heart sounds very soft, Samy." Samy put his shirt down. "What do you mean?" asked Samy with confusion. "Is something wrong?" After putting the stethoscope back on his shoulders, Dr. Devine looked at Samy with serious eyes and said, "It turns out that you are..." Samy held his breath, waiting for the worst. Dr. Devine then changed his concerned look into a smile. "Kind-hearted," he said enthusiastically. "What?" asked Samy, feeling more confused. Dr. Devine and Samy both started laughing. "Get it?" said Dr. Devine, chuckling. Samy scratched his chin. "Not really," he said. "It's a play on words, Samy," said Samy. "A pun or a joke. He meant that you're nice, as in kind, and you have a kind heart. It's meant to be funny." "Oh," said Samy, beginning to understand. He started giggling. "Yeah, now I get it." Suddenly, Samy stopped giggling a bit and asked, "So, is there really something wrong with my heart, doctor?" "No, Samy," said Dr. Devine, shaking his head. "There's nothing wrong with it. It's healthy and strong. I was just having a bit of fun with you." "See, Samy?" asked Samy. Samy faced his mother. "I told you Dr. Devine is fun and funny. He has a fun way with kids." Samy winked. "That's right," said Dr. Devine with a smile. "And I love to be around kids, like you and your little sister here." "Oh, Lucy?" asked Samy. "Does she have an appointment with you too?" "Not today," said Dr. Devine, "but she'll have one another time. This appointment was only for you. You're a very healthy young boy, Sammy. Keep up the good work and take very good care of yourself. Are you ready for a little prize?"
"Yeah,"
said Sammy, coming down from the exam table.
"Can Lucy have a prize too?"
"Of course she can," said Dr. Devine. He opened the door. "Follow me." Sammy and Senny, along with Lucy, followed Dr. Devine out of the exam room and down the hall. At the exit, there lay a little box full of small toys. There were little kaleidoscopes, magnifying glasses, keychains, and doodle pads. Above the little box, there were rolls of stickers. Some had race cars, some had fairy tale characters, and the last one had Winnie the Pooh and friends.
"I'll pick a Pooh Bear sticker for myself and a doodle pad for Lucy,"
said Sammy. Sammy picked the prizes and followed Senny and Lucy out the exit of the doctor's office.